I'm here in Westminster to meet Ed Miliband, Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, to ask him your questions about Copenhagen and to see how the UK is going to meet our emission reduction targets. One of the key goals at Copenhagen will be to agree a funding package for developing countries to assist with both mitigation and adaptation to climate change. The newly proposed EU target of €100 billion annually has been criticised as insufficient. So given this gap between what's been proposed and what's been asked for by developing countries, how much money will the UK be willing to give? And what do you think the role of the UK will be in reaching a mutually acceptable funding package at Copenhagen?
Well, we think that the EU money that has been offered, the £100 billion a year by 2020, the £100 billion a year, is a big step forward. We think it will make a big difference to not just helping countries, developing countries, to start to grow in a low carbon way, which is what we're saying to them. We've been growing in a high carbon way throughout our industrial history, but now we'd like you to grow in a low carbon way, so it's right that we offer them finance to help make that happen. But also for the people who are right on the front line of climate change, like the people I met in Bangladesh, who are living on sandbanks and who are literally seeing their homes washed away by climate change. Always it's going to be the case in a negotiation, developing countries are going to say we want more, developed countries are going to say, look, this is what we think we can do. Our task at the moment is to get other developed countries to sign up to this, the United States, Japan and other countries, and that's what we are fully focused on. So how can we get this to be not just an EU position, but a developed country position as well?
The world's forests play a vital role in both regulating our climate and absorbing carbon dioxide. And given that one of the greatest threats to our forests is land clearance to fuel economic growth, how can we make trees worth more alive than cut down?
We're going to have to find a way of helping to finance people who live in the forest and rely on their forest for their livelihood, so that they are discouraged from cutting down trees, whereas at the moment they are encouraged, because sometimes it's their only source of living for them. And you're right, it's a massive problem and a massive issue. People talk a lot about transport, and transport is really important, but the truth is that, as many people will know, deforestation represents the carbon impact of deforestation is more than the world's transport emissions. And so it is incredibly important that we have this as part of a deal. It's also incredibly important that and I went and visited the Amazon, that we respect the people who live in the forest and understand that reducing deforestation isn't just like an easy way of us kind of cutting down carbon emissions, but we've also got to find ways in which they can live a sustainable life as a result, and that they can find alternative livelihoods apart from relying on the cutting down of trees. Now, actually, a lot of it is to do with illegal logging and other things, which also needs to be stamped out. So I think it's got to be about people and the people who live in the forest and them having a proper livelihood, and it's got to be about the role of forests as kind of a crucial part of tackling climate change. And I think if we do both those things, and I think we need to do them as part of Copenhagen, then I think we'll be making progress both on the environmental front and also on the human front.
It's estimated that small and medium-sized businesses contribute around 20% of the UK's emissions. So how can we encourage these businesses to adopt more eco-friendly and perhaps costlier practices to reduce their emissions?
We need to do more with small and medium-sized businesses, because they are the businesses that are going to find it hardest to adapt. Your larger businesses are going to find this easier. The truth is that cutting down on your carbon emissions, making yourself more energy efficient, whether it's in your home or in your business, is also a way of saving money. But both in our homes and in businesses too, you face that big upfront cost problem. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's less big, sometimes it's just changing your practices. But there is a cost sometimes to putting in the insulation, to moving to different forms of heat. And what we're trying to do with small businesses through the Carbon Trust is provide loans, interest-free loans, to actually say to them, look, we can help you out here. So any small business watching this, if they go to the Carbon Trust website, they can find out more about how they can get money from the Carbon Trust precisely for this purpose. That's money that's available that we've set aside precisely because we want to help small businesses to adapt, This is money that was made available in the budget in March, and we're keen to get as much of it out of the door as possible. You don't often hear government saying that, so we hope people will take it up.
On an individual level, how can we encourage people to make the necessary lifestyle changes and to provide the political mandate for the UK to meet its emission reduction targets?
I think it's partly about making it easier for people to change their lifestyles. So my colleague Andrew Donis, the Transport Secretary, has this good anecdote about Leiden, a city in Holland, which has more bicycle racks at its train stations than the whole of London. Now, as a result, lots of people in Leiden ride their bicycle to the train station. That's just one small way, having more bike racks, that government can make it easier for people to change their lifestyles and adapt. The example of small business is another example, and how we can help them. I think there's a wider point there about how, because you asked about how we create the political support for this. A Labour Party member said to me recently, when I was talking about the dangers of climate change, he said, remember, Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a nightmare, he said, I have a dream. And in a sense, part of what we have to do is present the more positive vision out of making the low-carbon transition, whether that is the jobs that will be available, the fact that we'll be more secure in terms of our energy, because low-carbon energy is often homegrown energy, the fact that we can make a better quality of life for people, that we can create less pollution from, say, electric cars than conventional cars. All of those things, I think, have to add up to the vision. And to be honest, we've not been good enough at putting forward the positive case as well as the negative case, if you like. So I think that's really key to keeping people on board and actually getting more people on board.
A really important aspect to achieve our emission reduction targets will be to move away from fossil fuel energies. How can we make renewable energy more accessible and more affordable for the UK household?
We're introducing this thing in April of next year called the feed-in tariff, which is basically a way in which you can create your own electricity from solar, wind, and sell it back to the grid. And it's not just for individuals on their houses, but also for local communities. Because people have said to us that the current system is too complicated for us at a small scale to generate our own electricity and get something out of it. So we want to move in that direction, and we think that sort of microenergy is very important as part of sort of persuading people to come on board for this. But we also have to more generally persuade people that actually, you know, the wind turbine is a classic example. Some people don't like wind turbines. Some people think it's a threat to the countryside. I think that climate change is a bigger threat to the British countryside. There's an estimate that I think 26% of bird species will go if we don't stop dangerous climate change. So, you know, there are issues about biodiversity and renewable energy. There are much bigger issues about climate change and biodiversity. And I think we have to, again, it's a job of persuasion. And we've got a long way to go, I think, to do that.
The industrialised and global food system that we now have is a major contribution to worldwide emissions. During World War II, it was estimated that UK households grew over 1 million tonnes of food in allotments and gardens. Do you think that home growing is an important part of reducing our emissions? And if so, how can we encourage this more within UK households?
I think this can make a contribution. I don't think our message should be to people, you've all got to grow your own vegetables, because people lead extremely busy lives. Sometimes people aren't going to be able to do that. But I think the people who do that are to be encouraged, and we are encouraging local authorities, and there are some great schemes around the country to work, for example, with schools, or with local libraries, or with old people's homes, which have gardens that can be used for allotments as well. And so, you know, I think that is a part of it. I think the only other thing I say, though, is sometimes on the seasonal food thing, we have to be careful, because a fruit or a vegetable grown out of season domestically, like with big greenhouse costs in terms of energy, might involve higher carbon than something shipped or flown in from abroad. So it's not sort of sometimes straightforward. As straightforward as saying more miles equals more carbon. Sometimes less miles might equal more carbon. And there is also the issue about the people in those countries who rely on exports to sort of, make a living themselves. So I think it's, in a way, it's an area where people probably need better information, and we need to provide people with better information.
Ed, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time today, for answering the questions of our innocent drinkers, and that we wish you all the best for Copenhagen.
Thank you to all your drinkers for writing in.
So that was Ed answering your questions about Copenhagen. And remember, if you want to know more about what you can do on Copenhagen, visit the Innocent Drinks website and follow the links through to the Act on Copenhagen page.